Hello, I'm delighted to announce today the launch of Gray Dawes' Legacy Programme. With the expertise and support of Forest Carbon, the UK leader in woodland creation for carbon capture, we are, from today, able to provide our clients with a world-class solution to not only their carbon emission calculations, but also an array of authenticated carbon offsetting projects, both domestically and across the globe. Such as Gray Dawes' commitment to sustainability, our owners, the Inchcape family, have converted nearly 300 acres of working farmland on their Glenapp estate in Ayrshire to permanent woodland creation. But more on that later. Our partners at Forest Carbon, Stephen Pryor and George Hepburn Scott, were unable to join today's live On Your Marks virtual seminar. So this is a pre-recorded conversation we had a couple of weeks ago. George and Stephen, welcome. Please tell us more about Legacy and how it impacts Gray Dawes' clients from your perspective.
Man, thank you. Firstly, by way of introduction, Forest Carbon lead the way in UK woodland creation and peatland restoration for carbon capture. We are super excited to be partnering with Gray Dawes Travel in launching Legacy. It's an awesome new carbon offset program designed specifically for Gray Dawes clients. And Legacy ensures that your business travel can be managed with a tangible focus on sustainability. Legacy is a great way for you, your organization, and the wider business travel industry, and of course, the planet.
Tell me a little bit about Forest Carbon. When did that start?
Yeah, we got started in 2006. We completed our first projects that year. We started with Marks and Spencer's as our first partner, so we felt like we had a pretty good start there. And along the way, we helped the Forestry Commission design, develop, implement the Woodland Carbon Code. We were the sort of first people to use that standard. We were on the advisory board that designed it and put it together. We've also helped the government put together the peatland code as well. We were on the advisory board there that designed that. So we've been innovators through that time. So far, we've planted something like 207, I think is at the moment, UK woodlands. We've got about another 40 or so in the development process. We've planted, I think it's 11 woodlands in Ireland as well, working with Microsoft there.
Why is it important then for businesses and travelers to offset their carbon emissions?
I've felt for a long time, actually, that travel, business or otherwise, is one of those industries that it's almost going to be the last one to decarbonize because, you know, people need to go where they're going, whether it be for events or tourism, or in the case of business. We know from our own experiences in the last year of the technology existed for the sort of thing we're doing now before COVID, but you know from your own experiences that the amount of innovation, I keep using that word, but the amount of problem solving, creativity that can occur when you're in the room together is hard to beat with these sort of technological alternatives. So I think there is still going to be a need to travel. So therefore offsetting and decarbonisation becomes a really important part of that.
So looking more specifically around Legacy and the products that our clients can be accessing through that, what are the options available through Legacy?
Very broadly speaking, there are three types of products. There's CSR, which would be UK woodland creation or UK peatland restoration; carbon neutral, which could be international projects, forestry, peatlands, renewable energy projects; or net zero, which would be international forestry-based projects.
I, as a layman, had always considered that as soon as you put the seed to the ground to grow the tree, that is in some way counting as you offsetting, but that's not the case.
There is a short-term issuance of a carbon credit, which gives you transparency about, who owns the carbon credits from the woodland. Mm-hmm. But that carbon credit won't mature until the trees have grown in the future. And that typically that maturation period, or we call it the carbon credits vesting, is between year 15 and year whatever the end of the project duration is, which on average is probably about year 65. So that's the range of time over which those carbon credits will get converted into carbon savings as the trees grow.
This is actually a project very close to our hearts, and our input goes beyond facilitating business travel. Gray Dawes Group is actually a family-owned business owned by the Inchcapes, who are very passionate about sustainability. On their working farmland, referred to as the Glenapp estate, they've committed to permanently convert 145 hectares, which to you and I is around 200 football pitches, from working farmland to forestry. To put that into context, Stephen, how many trees can be planted in that space?
Well, on this particular project, that's just shy of 250,000, so 250,000 trees will be planted at that site.
The project at Glenap Estate in Ayrshire is an even mix of native broadleaves and commercial conifers. The scheme will both help enhance biodiversity and provide shelter for livestock, but it will also produce much needed domestically grown timber. Using the Woodland Carbon Code calculator, which is backed by metrics provided by Forest Research, along with estimated growth rates, it is forecasted over the 75-year agreed project duration that the project will sequester 42,000 tonnes of CO2 equivalent.
I probably would add at this stage as well that we work around the UK with lots of different landowners, different types of land ownership. So the Glenap project, which is a really great project, will be one of the projects that are offered to Gray Dawes clients to support. There will also be other projects as well in the mix that people can support.
So how legacy would work from a client perspective is that we, as your TMC, would calculate from your book data your carbon emissions using the DEFRA model and transfer the emissions numbers to Forest Carbon on a quarterly, biannual basis, whatever the client wishes for us to do, and transfer that to Forest Carbon. And Steve, from that point on, what is the output from a client perspective? What do they see?
Again, obviously, that's going to depend on which product they've chosen. But very roughly speaking, 1 tonne of CO2 emissions equates to 1 carbon credit, and 1 carbon credit could be from any one of those different types of projects we described earlier on. So, for example, in the UK context, 1 carbon credit, which represents the future carbon savings we talked about, in a UK woodland, a carbon credit would be somewhere between sort of 3.5 to 12 trees planted, or somewhere between 50 to 100 square meters of peatland restoration. And the reason those numbers are so widely varied is just simply because project types vary so much. Project locations, species mix, planting density, management, the condition of the peatland, for example. So that's what leads to that wide range of possibilities.
Key routes for our clients is London to New York return, typically done on business class. How much carbon output is that?
Return business class flight to New York is about 4 3/4 tonnes of CO2. Mm-hmm. Cost to offset that is going to be somewhere less than 2% of the ticket cost. And again, there's so many variables here: the projects you choose, the actual price of the ticket, and so on. So it could be significantly less than 2%, but that was the sort of figure we came up with as the theoretical maximum. And then that would generate, in the UK context, somewhere between 16 and 50 trees planted, again based on the numbers I talked about earlier, or somewhere between 250 and 500 meters squared of peatland restoration.
From what I've read into offsetting, it's had some negative press. I'm sure you've seen yourself. How do you ensure that your landowners avoid double counting the authenticity of the projects in the terms that they haven't planned these projects themselves, and in terms of even loss of those woodlands to, say, fire damage?
Man, you raise an interesting point. All projects that will be offered as part of the legacy program via Forest Carbon are validated and verified under leading voluntary carbon standards, and whether those are based in the UK or whether they're further afield internationally. Just to set the context for the UK-based woodland creation projects, all our projects go through a validation and verification process long-term under the Woodland Carbon Code. This standard was launched in 2011 by the UK government and is recognised as one of the world's leading carbon standards. And by way of background, the Woodland Carbon Code sets out robust requirements that incorporate core principles of good carbon management as part of sustainable forestry management, and landowners and successors entitled must commit to permanent land use change to woodland. In respect of permanence, all Woodland Carbon Code projects, for example, have to contribute to a pooled buffer. And this pooled buffer safeguards investment made by carbon buyers and maintains and protects the integrity of verified woodland carbon units long term.
With international projects, they're also subject to quality assurance under these voluntary carbon standards. We use mostly the VERA VCS standard, verified carbon standard. Those credits are also listed on an on a public registry where you can see credit ownership, credit retirement, and credits again can only be used once. So once, for example, once we've completed some work with you guys and we've retired some credits in the name of your clients, they can't be used again. They're cancelled basically. So that sort of prevents that double selling element. And because it's public, there's complete transparency that the legacy program is fulfilling on its commitments.
That sounds like a really robust process. In terms of the projects themselves, how tangible are they? Our clients are putting in investments financially to these. Do they receive updates? Can they visit them personally? How does it work?
Clearly, there are kind of logistical challenges the further afield you go, but I suppose in the context of UK-based projects, Forest Carbon would look to work with Gray Dawes and the wider legacy program to arrange some bespoke visits to projects, which will be on a kind of first come, first served basis. There will be an element of kind of restriction on visitor numbers, but we'd be delighted to work in partnership with Gray Dawes to deliver that. And what we would also endeavour to do is provide regular updates on the progress of projects.
What type of certification can be achieved through that?
We would work with Gray Dawes Legacy to help produce an annual certificate for members for all the CO2 that they have committed to during that year. We'd like to give some extra information on that certificate. Might be number of trees planted, number of hectares of peat, that sort of thing. There'll be a limit to how much of that data we can generate based on the project choice. Obviously, we're not going to see individual client data necessarily. We'll just provide the kind of metrics back to Gray Dawes for them to generate the certificates. But we'll stand behind those certificates because we've checked over your methodology. We've seen your data, your globalized data. So we'll definitely help you generate those certificates for your clients.
All of us at Gray Dawes are super excited about the Legacy project, and we're thrilled to be working in partnership with Forest Carbon. And we can't wait to bring this to our clients. Thank you again, Stephen and George.
Thank you guys as well. And we're also very excited about getting cracking with you on this program.